Hi, everybody. Welcome to Piercing the Veil.
Hey, nice to see everyone again.
Hope you guys are all having a good weekend. I know we are, and we have enjoyed the weekend. It's been a little hot for us, but other than that, it's been really great and been busy as always, doing some shows and podcasts and popping in here and there and checking everybody out. Just like our guests that we have tonight, we have Long Island Bigfoot and Dogman Encounters, which you all probably know is Vic Cundiff. And so they're our special guests tonight, and we can't wait to talk to them about their experiences.
Oh, yeah.
So who all do we have in chat here? We got Tim Mothman, Polly, Denise, Gary Spikes, Henry. Who am I missing? Who else is in here?
I'm trying to scroll back because I saw Blazer earlier. Henry, Gary, Denise, Tim Mothman, Clay.
Hey, Clay.
Conspiracy music. Dogman Encounters is in here.
Force of Nature. Hi. So when we're going in the show, if you have a question that's pertinent to our topic, just make sure you put it in all caps so we can capture it and bring it up on screen, and we'll try to get our guests to address it, or maybe me and Jane can answer it. I don't know. You never know. But saying that, let's bring our guests up, and we're excited to talk with them and get into the show. So here we go, guys.
All right. And Mike.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Vic. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. We enjoy having different people on the guest. And Mike, I know you've been on our show and we've been on yours, but Vic, this is the first time for you, and glad to meet you.
Well, it's great to meet you. Thanks for having me.
So we've heard a lot of great stuff about stories from Vic being on other shows and other people that we know, like Jessica the Cryptid Huntress, and obviously Heidi Pop, you guys were just on. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to hear some more experiences that you might have had, or even descriptions of Dogman, because a lot of times people describe Dogman and they see different aspects, and everybody's encounter seems to be different. Do you guys find that a lot?
Oh yeah, different to a certain point. There are two main categories of dogmen. You've got a type that has canid style legs with hocks instead of ankles and stifled joints instead of knees. And then I call that the canine type. And then there's another type that has hominid style legs. That's basically called a type 3 in most circles. But yeah, each of those two main types have several variants inside of them. As far as canine type dogmen go, you've got several looks. Some look as unassuming as a timber wolf that can stand up on his back legs. Others, they can look like the werewolf out of the Van Helsing movie. There's another type that looks like the werewolves from the Underworld movies. And then you have other ones that have different looks altogether. Some look like hyenas that can stand upright. And as far as the type 3s go, you've got one type that can look like that werewolf from An American Werewolf in London. You've got another variant that can look like a Sasquatch that just happens to have a baboon face and claws. Yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of different looks. But if you do this for a certain period of time, you're going to notice things circle back. You won't notice it expanding outside of a certain size circle. I mean, there are limits to the variants that you get used to hearing about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because when I made up the thumbnail when you guys were coming on, I couldn't find a real good Dogman picture that I liked. I didn't want to take somebody else's that they've already done, so I tried to use AI to come up with the best one I could, and that's what I came up with. But he looked really muscular, more human than anything, I thought.
Yeah, that's a good picture. That's a good representation.
I think so too, yeah.
Well, that's the first thing I said was, look at that six-pack. I don't think most dogmen have a six-pack like that.
You got to work out in the woods when you're out there, you got to.
That's right. What's disturbing is they can actually be more muscular than that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they can. They can be 12 feet tall, and They can be 4 feet wide at the shoulders, and yeah, quite the specimen.
Yeah, because we heard the story, and I can't remember who had the story on their show, but about where the postman and the dogs, and then there was like the horse that got its head ripped off or something. So I mean, that would be quite a feat to rip off a horse's head.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, when people go back and forth about this whole Sasquatch versus Dogman thing, they forget the fact that, or I guess they don't know that, yeah, Sasquatch are ridiculously strong, but Dogmen are too. I'm sure they're not as strong as Sasquatch, but yeah, they are not frail. They're awfully strong themselves.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the representation you have on your store or whatever with the Dogman holding down the grizzly bear, like just holding it, pushing its head down in the dirt, and like it's just a good representation to like show their, portray their strength, I think.
Wow.
That's
Well,
pretty.
Go ahead, Vic.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say, yeah, that's pretty accurate. People say there's no way that one of these guys could take down a grizzly bear, but if they're above a certain size, they most definitely could.
Right. Not only their stature, I mean, because if they're on their hind legs, then they're tall. So they're, a lot of stories have them at 8-9 feet tall, maybe even taller. I don't know, but they're a creature of the forest or out there in the wilderness. So obviously they know how to hunt, how to take care of themselves. So they know how to sneak up and be quiet and do all the stuff that we think we know how to do in the forest.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it really gets me laughing when I hear people talk about taking guns out into the woods to protect themselves from dogmen. It doesn't matter what type of weapon you take out there. If these guys want to take you out, they can. At will.
Yeah.
Right. They're so agile.
I think when it comes to the cryptids. Yeah, when it comes to cryptids, I think weapons are like a false sense of security. You know what I mean?
Well, plus they know. I mean, they know when we come into the forest, just like Sasquatch, Dogman. They all know when they sense us. They know ahead of time when we're coming in and what our intentions are. And my gosh, you're so quick. Like I was getting ready to say, God help you if there's more than one, because you might be able to pull a gun up and maybe get a shot up on one, but that one's going to be on you and the other one's going to be on you.
No doubt.
Wow. Well, I know their legs and feet and knees and everything vary. What about their feet? Are they more like a human foot, or are they more like a dog-shaped foot? Or do they vary?
It varies. I mean, if you're talking about a type 3, then their feet can look like a Sasquatch foot, but they're normally going to have claws at the tips of their toes. But as far as the canine types, then yeah, normally for the most part, their feet are going to resemble an oversized canid print.
Okay. Interesting.
So what other characteristics do you guys know about dogmen? I mean, other than the physical, or is there, is there a scent in the air, like they say with Sasquatch? Is there any other kind of things that you should look for when you're out there in the woods?
Mike spends so much time out in the woods, he would definitely be the go-to for that answer.
He froze.
I did I?
For a little bit, yeah.
You're good
back
now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I can only speak for myself, you know what I mean? But I didn't know anything until they wanted me to. I didn't I didn't smell anything, I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, there was one point where and I've heard this multiple times and I still don't know how to explain it, but it sounds like a pack of wolves per se, right? Like, and it's this is very hard to explain this part, but it sounds like they're in the distance, but also like it's aimed at you. Like it's like you can almost feel it, like it's on top of you. Like I don't know how to explain it really, other than that. And
I understand. I've experienced that.
as yeah, and it's almost like the sound gets closer, but it still sounds distant. But yet it's very honed in on your ears. Like
Mhm.
it's about the only thing I could say that was kind of an alert to their presence. Because at that point I knew I needed to get out of there on one particular occasion, and I just didn't know the sense of urgency at the time. I was still kind of ignorant to it, I guess, and learned it the hard way, I suppose. But
Well, I think, a lot of times we have senses that, we become aware of something. I mean, sometimes, it's your hair, or they're on the back of your neck, on your arm stand up, or you just have that weird feeling, or, some people even like Sasquatch, the infrasound, I don't know if Dogman has that capability or not. Maybe you guys have heard of stories where they do, where you can get that stomach icky feeling in your stomach, and maybe a brain fog from the infrasound.
Well, there have been eyewitnesses who have reported feeling effects that might have been due to infrasound, but it's nowhere near to the point that you normally find with Sasquatch eyewitnesses. So they might be able to affect us with infrasound, but I guess the jury's still out on that.
Do they cloak out like Sasquatch?
Yeah, a lot of credible eyewitnesses report witnessing that. Definitely.
Wow. Okay. All right. Wow.
Well, that was another point I was going to get to. Our show is called Piercing the Veil, and a lot of times people say that when they come up on Dogman, just like Mike's experience, all of a sudden it was just like there, right, Mike? So is the veil thinning, or because sometimes they act like they're surprised that we can see them?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if the veil's necessarily thinning. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I do know we have the ability now to mass communicate, right? So like it's a little different than it would have been back, in the 70s, 80s, even 90s or whatever, right? Like things had to make the news or the newspaper to be heard about, right? So like, or it had to be something that caught the attention of the whole town, like the Beast of Bray Road or whatever the case may be, right? Like, so it had to be something on like a mass scale for it to be heard of. But now you have these hubs like Vic's Dogman Encounters, where you can go and you can hear over 200 stories, and and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you have like a database, or just your YouTube stories, or your podcast that people can go and listen to, and hear other people's experiences, so they can like say, okay, well, maybe this little piece of his story fits what I witnessed or what I experienced, and helps other people out to put a big picture together.
Yeah, it does bit by bit help us put the picture in place, but there are so many pieces of info that we would need to get an accurate representation that I don't think we're ever going to get to that point.
Yeah, probably
No,
not. I mean,
I don't.
just like we said earlier, there's so many aspects, and everybody's experiences are different. And just like you said, Vic, that there's many classifications of dogmen. So, I mean, there could be mutations off of each one of those classes, or who knows?
Yeah, that's true. It really makes you wonder where the finish line is for all this, how far it goes.
Yeah, you hear so many stories of
That's
dogmen
true.
being friendly and interacting with them, or helping them out of the woods, saving them. It just makes you wonder if there's more good reports than there is the fear-mongering reports.
Yeah, there are a lot of fear-mongering reports, but on the other end of the spectrum, as long as I've been doing this, talking with thousands upon thousands of dogman eyewitnesses, I think it's only been like maybe 2 or 3 cases of dogmen actually showing altruistic behavior like that. Not ever has anyone told me about a dogman leading them out of the forest, but I think on 2 or 3 occasions they've displayed, I guess you could consider it to be somewhat helpful behavior.
Yeah, I really don't know. Like I said, I've never really had a dogman experience, but we've had, noises and stuff by our property, and we kind of suspect a dogman, and we kind of think there may be a clan of Sasquatch somewhere in the area, but we haven't really had an eye-on experience or anything that we can say.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I like listening to the stories to hear everybody else that might have had an encounter. It kind of makes me interested and like, oh, geez, I wonder what is out there.
I hope you never do find out firsthand what it's like to have an encounter.
Yeah, I don't really wish to see one. I mean, maybe way far in the distance, maybe something moving, that I can kind of see a silhouette, but like a face to face. Nah, I don't want that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Bigfoot. Yeah, I want to see Bigfoot across the field, but Dogman, I'm kind of leery of. And yeah, I found tracks. We're connected to a cornfield. It's not our cornfield, but 10 feet past our barn, we have this massive cornfield, and I like playing in it in the summer. Well, last year I found these, they're larger. I mean, they're a large round print, but it wasn't 4. You can tell it was bipedal, and it was a mark and then 3 or 4 feet more. 3 or 4 feet. It was long strides. And I did hear something huff one night and run out of the cornfield. So I was kind of wondering if, oh my God, was that a dogman? So that's why I was asking about the tracks. So do they have real long strides in between their steps? Vic, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks for catching that. That's what happens when you get old. But it depends on whether it's a big dog man or a small dog man. Is it walking bipedally or quadrupedally? When you looked at the prints, did you notice a left, right pattern, or was it left, right in the pattern?
It was like Sasquatch. It was in front of each other. I mean, they were right in front of each other, but 3 or 4 feet different.
Okay.
And I knew Sasquatch knuckle crawl, but I'm thinking if they knuckle crawled, I wouldn't see the individual. So I wasn't sure what I found last year.
Yeah, that's bipedal, a bipedal gait.
Yeah.
When people talk about the strange pattern of Sasquatch prints, how it's like an inline pattern, that might seem really strange, but if you know a certain amount about anatomy, it fits. That's what you would expect. If you think about the hip girdle structure of a Sasquatch, if a Sasquatch is above a certain size, you're going to notice more and more that those prints tend to fall in line like that. And that's because, think about a bridge with 2 stanchions going up to support the weight of the bridge. Well, the further apart those stanchions are from one another, the more of a moment there's going to be for the weight. If one of the stanchions was removed, there's going to be more of a moment trying to tilt that weight so it falls over to the side. Well, if you have a Sasquatch that's above a certain size, if it walked with its legs going straight down, then that doesn't support when you're on one leg like that with a wide hip structure. Because of your size, you're not supporting your weight as effectively as if you move that foot inward, so that when you're walking, one foot is more in front of the other. You're doing a better job of supporting the weight until the other leg that's off the ground swings forward and comes forward to bear the weight. So from an anatomy standpoint, that's what you would expect. You would expect to see the prints in line like that versus way out here, the next one's way out there. That just wouldn't fit because you would be falling to the left, falling to the right instead of a smooth gait.
And it also wasn't like a fox, coyote, wolf that would have the 4. It had like 2 in the front and like 2 on the side. It was not like 4 pads, if that makes any sense, like a dog print. It was just mainly 2 large ones and then 2 on the side, but it was definitely round. And I didn't see claws. There was no like claw marks on them either.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Next time, if you do happen to find prints that you think might belong to a dogman, look at the pad structure. you can tell the difference between wolf prints and coyote prints and a dog print. The wolf prints, the coyote prints, if you look carefully, well, I guess this is if the substrate is the right kind of dirt to give you a good print. Because, yeah, some cases, the dirt just doesn't make a very good print, or you can notice many details. But, yeah, if it is the type of ground that does make a good print, then, yeah, if you look at that print carefully, if you're looking at a wolf print or a coyote print, look at the toes and how the toes are pointing. With a wolf, with a coyote, wild, in other words, a wild canid, they're going to point straight forward. But with the dog, you'll notice, okay, they splay a little bit. And that's one way you can tell a dog of a certain size with the same size print as a coyote that's got the same size print. Look at those toes, and that'll tell you, is it a wild canid or a domesticated one?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was odd. You didn't really see the 4 toes like a canine. It was like 2 large toes and like 2 large on the side. It was definitely round, but it wasn't 4 distinct toes up in the front.
Yeah.
So, I haven't seen anything this summer, so thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness it's right.
Well, we have a couple questions in chat, and we'll just pop them up here and see what you guys think of it, and maybe we have some ideas on it, maybe we don't. I don't know. So we'll see. So Polly says, Dogman, different dimensions or different human evolutions? Do you guys have a theory on that or any idea?
I'm not sure what she means about the different human evolution part.
Well, like did Dogman, you know,
are they like a human hybrid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ability to go in and out of dimensions, I assume.
Yeah.
Did you want to take that one, Mike?
No, go ahead, Vic, please.
Okay, no problem. Well, yeah, I wish I could give you a definitive answer on that, but I can't really tell you. We don't know. We don't have enough information, but they do things that very credible eyewitnesses report witnessing that point towards them possibly being able to go into a different dimension. I mean, when you talk with a very credible eyewitness, or I can't even tell you how many credible eyewitnesses I've spoken with over the years who told me about seeing them apparently disappearing into a portal or stepping out of a portal into this existence. Where did they go? Where did they come from? We don't know. But I mean, if you're going into a portal or stepping out of one, I guess if that's not going into a different dimension, then what is it?
Yeah, obviously that would be the case.
Well, that's what I think too. Like, when I hear you're talking about the footprints in the cornfield, like it's interesting you said that, because I've heard a lot of reports about them liking corn, and it's come from out east, you know, and a lot of people don't want to be on the record, but it comes from out east and looking from the cornfield, and it's similar where they see these tracks and then they're gone, right? So like, if it's a domestic or a coyote or whatever the case may be, you don't find a trackway that disappears. They go somewhere, or they go into a game trail, or whatever the case is. You can see where they go, but when you see these, footprints that go somewhere and then lead to nowhere, like, are they just popping in to just come and have like a taste of the corn that's, in our reality right here? You know what I mean? Like, it's a tough question to tackle, obviously, for me, because I don't know enough about the Dogmen. But
right, and like we said, we only know the stories that we hear, or from maybe even your guys' shows when people tell experiences or whatever. But it does seem like either they use portals or they have some kind of dimensional ability, just like Sasquatch, where people report, they see him, or they go behind a tree, then there's nothing. They can't find them or any trace of them.
Sure.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's so much about that we just don't know. I don't think we're ever going to know. I really don't.
No, not on this plane anyway.
No, yeah, not at all. You know what I like the most about Mike there? It really gets me how he'll put himself in a situation where very few researchers would have the guts to go and do what this man does. I mean, he
Yeah.
deserves so much credit. This guy, he describes it as being in the fishbowl. This guy would go and set up camp in the raunchiest, rowdiest places for cryptids and all. And he's just sitting around the campfire. I can just picture him sitting around the campfire and everything, roasting some hot dogs and having a good old time. Who knows what's out there watching him? And it's no problem. It's old hat for him. But anybody else, I mean, they'd be grabbing their tent, their sleeping bag. They'd be heading the heck out of there. But no, not this guy. He's got some brass ones. I'll tell you what.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. He starts laughing, going, "Oh, cool! Did you hear that?"
Yeah. Don't know how
I think we saw ice shine, and he gets his flashlight and runs right towards it.
And he talks about it. The best part is he talks about these experiences that would just rattle pretty much anybody. Like I talk about what I saw when I went to the grocery store. Yeah, so I was sitting there, and this dog man stepped out and looked over. And, I mean, we'd be mortified. Here he is talking about it, like, oh yeah, he's over there, and he was about this tall, and I don't know how he does it.
This like taking a trip down to your local grocery market. No big deal. I'll tell you when something exciting happens.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Somebody said that to me last time. They were like, "You just sit there, cool as a cucumber." Like, "Oh yeah, been there, done that." Like, but that's the best description I can give. Is you kind of have to put yourself on display, like a fish tank in a dark house at night. Like, you just hope that they pass by, and you've enticed them enough, and depending on what you're talking about, right? Usually I'm dealing with Sasquatch, but sometimes other things come, and you gotta just make adjustments, and I don't know, kind of make the best decision you can in that moment for whatever rears its head.
Now, I know we're probably not going to have an answer for this one either, but I'll bring it up. Henry says, do we know what motivates Dogman?
I can tell you one thing that does.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, let's let Mike take that.
No, I think you're going to say what I'm going to say, so go ahead.
He's going to put me on the spot. What if you make me nervous? Come on now.
No, it's a 4-letter word. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Fear. That's right.
Fear. That's it.
Yeah. It makes sense, though. I mean, you're talking about not an apex predator. You're talking about the apex predator of the woods. You're talking about something that doesn't have any trouble feeding itself. If you think mountain lions have earned the nickname deer killing machines, these guys make mountain lions look like rank amateurs. They don't have any trouble feeding themselves. So what do we have here? We've got not an apex predator, again, the apex predator of the woods, who's got tons and tons of time on its hands every day that has to occupy itself with doing something. The more intelligent you are, the more easily you become bored. That's a fact. So, I mean, they're so intelligent. I mean, I'd say they probably have human level intelligence, and in some ways, their intelligence supersedes our own. But you're talking about a very intelligent being out there with tons of free time on its hand every day. It's got to do something with. I think one of the favorite pastimes is trying to frighten us to within an inch of our lives, and that's why so many of these encounters happen.
Yep.
I mean, I assume they're just like anything else out in the wilderness. It's like a bear or a moose or whatever that, if we startle it, then they're going to respond in that way, whether it's protecting their young or their territory, or, hey, you're just an intruder and I'm going to run at you and stomp you or whatever, So I'm assuming there's that kind of aspect to Dogmen also. I mean, because they're out there all the time.
Well, we
Yeah,
we brought up mountain lions, and something that they started doing is they mountain lions picked up on the fact that wolves were coming in and or bears were coming into their kill and coming and taking their kill, or they would have to fight for their kill. So what these mountain lions are doing, just to eat in peace and be left alone and stay so secretive, they're killing, leaving the site, leaving the kill site, killing again, leaving that kill site, and then killing again, and then eating that, so that they are left alone. Like they're going down to, you know what I'm saying? Like, so they'll,
Right.
and if they're adapting to the competition, and not to the point where they want to fight with them. They were just doing it like, okay, I know how you play, so I'm gonna, you know what I mean? And, you know, as somebody who's been in combat, that was how it was with the unseen enemy too. It was like they would constantly adapt to what we were doing. We would have to figure out what they were doing, and then they would adapt to it, and then we would have to figure that out, and then they knew what we were doing, and they would change. And even if that meant going all the way back to square one, because that was the furthest thing from your mind. You know what I mean? So I apologize, Vic. I didn't mean to jump over you.
No, by all means. No, whenever Mike says something and all, I just sit there and listen because he's got some good experience and he puts out good information.
Yes, he
Right.
does.
Yeah, because he spends a lot more time out in the middle of nowhere than we do. So I'll listen to everything that he has to say. Even you, Vic, you have so many experiences of people telling you theirs. I mean, anything I can glean out of the stories that you tell, I pay attention to.
Yeah,
Oh, thank
absolutely.
you, Sam. Yeah, Mike's so humble, he's never going to admit it, but yeah, he's got so much experience out there in the woods. I mean, we could do a lot worse than to listen to what he's got to share. So why not do it?
Now here's another one that comes up quite a bit, and I think they're two separate things, but I'll bring it up on screen and we'll see what you guys think. What is the difference between Dogman and a werewolf? This is from Professor Bauer.
You want to take that, Mike, or should I?
I'm just going to copyright what you say, so you might as well. Because it's the best answer.
That's a good answer there. Well, a Dogman looks the way it does 24/7, 365. Over the years, I've spoken with thousands upon thousands of people, credible people who've told me about their experiences with dogmen. But as far as werewolves go, a werewolf would be, the definition of a werewolf is a human who somehow has the ability to transform into the form of a beast that looks like what we know to be a werewolf. Now, when medical students are pre-med and they're learning how to become doctors, one of the things that they're taught is if you hear hooves clicking on the floor behind you, think horse, not zebra, when they're learning how to diagnose illnesses. They're taught that because normally the simplest answer is the correct one. Now, is it possible when some of these eyewitnesses are seeing what we call dogmen, is it possible that what they're seeing are people who have somehow magically been able to transform into the state of a beast? Well, I guess it is possible if subatomic particles called quarks, which actually do exist, have the ability to wink in and wink out of existence. They're there one moment and next moment they're gone. If that's possible, I guess anything is possible. But the much easier explanation to buy would be that what they're seeing looks the way it does 24/7, 365. And it's called a dogman. So, yeah, is it possible that werewolves exist? Yeah, I wouldn't say anything is impossible, but it's one of those things where I'd have to actually see it to believe it, that werewolves are actually out there. I think there aren't any werewolves. I could be wrong again. Like I said, I could be totally wrong about that, and I'll be the first to admit that. But I don't believe werewolves exist, having said that. I just believe that we're dealing with dogmen. Dogmen, beings that look the way they do all the time. So, yeah, that's the difference between what a dogman is and what a werewolf is, if they actually do exist.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I mean, I guess deep down, I kind of since I grew up watching sci-fi and horror films, you know, the old black and white vampire, Wolfman, mummy shows, you know, I kind of half-heartedly believe that they're real, even though they're probably truly mythical. And a dogman is a physical blood, you know, creature. I mean, that's kind of how I feel, but at the same time, I keep thinking, well, what if there really could be a werewolf? Or, but like you, I'd like to see one from a distance, obviously, transform from a human to a werewolf, or the other way around.
The main problem, guys, is there are charlatans that have come out of the woodwork now, presenting themselves as being know-it-alls. They have inside info, they're government operatives, and they can tell you everything you want to know about a werewolf and a dogman. Werewolves don't have tails, but dogmen do. And werewolves have 49 hairs per square inch on the right shoulder blades, but on the left shoulder blades, they have 32. I mean, all this nonsense. And they show their faces too. No, and I've said this plenty of times before, if your significant other had their own podcast, and it was a popular podcast especially, and you're at work doing whatever, and for whatever reason you're listening to it that day, well, all of a sudden you hear that they're revealing what your social security number is to their audience. They're revealing this and that sensitive information that you would never want them to put out there. Well, yeah, you're going to try and put the kibosh on that as soon as possible. But your ability to do that is going to be determined by your means and your resources. With the government, you know darn well if that person was actually a bona fide government operative who did have access to some government program where they dealt with these things, the government would never want that operative to put that information out there for public consumption. They never would want that or allow it. If you reveal what you look like while you're doing that, they would snuff you out so quick. I mean, with all their resources, even if you didn't show what you look like, they could still easily find out who you are and get to you and shut you up. So don't give me that there's some government operative or ex-government operative who's privy to all this sensitive information. Again, the government would never want put out there for public consumption. Don't tell me that there is some person out there that's spilling the beans like that and has been spilling the beans like that for who knows how long. Yeah, that's just one of the frustrating things about this whole dogman thing. You've got so much bad information that's being put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like Plum Island, for instance, right? They do these experiments on animals and who knows what else. And we've known about this place forever. And there's zero information on this place. I could tell you what I know about it, right? And they take a ferry from Orient Point. They take their own ferry. They have to park over there. They go in. I know somebody who worked there many years ago as a contractor who went in. They made him go through multiple stages of security. He was going in to fix something. He was a special, mechanic for something specific. He was issued the things, like the screwdriver, whatever. He was issued all those things there. He had to tell somebody what he needed, whatever. He had to get washed, when he came in, showered when he went out, all these things. And there's no way, like Vic's saying, that anybody's going to come out with that kind of stuff. Like, you have to go through. It's not like, you just sign an NDA and they're going to show you, the Dogman laboratory. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yep.
oh yeah, and then they're going to release you to go and do podcasts. Like, it is a pretty outrageous concept to think about, but
Definitely.
it happens. It happens.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a good narrative. I give it to them. It's a good narrative. It's a good storyline, I guess.
Like
but
the UFO
just
hearings and stuff. If you are really a government operative, like Vic and you just said, I mean, and you have secrets, how long do you think you're going to be out in the public when you actually tell something factual that the government is doing and they don't want us to know?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Well, even
Another thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I was gonna just say, even leaving Afghanistan, like they tricked us into doing a surprise. They told us we were doing an inventory thing, and CID came. Whatever, Central Intelligence Defense. I don't know what the hell the abbreviations are. There's too many of them. Acronyms. There's too many. But they came and they took they wiped out all our stuff, our laptops, our it's going back to like 2011. But they stole my SD card and everything. Like anything right before we left. So just the simplest little inkling that you have some kind of sensitive information, or possibly proof of it, it's not going to happen.
Not at all. What really burns me, I mean, that's unfortunate, but what really burns me about some of the shows that are so loose with the truth is everyone knows that fear sells. Well, you've got shows out there that don't have the means to pull in if they really focus on Dogman content. Very few shows are going to have the pull to be able to have a new Dogman eyewitness every week, week in, week out. Oh, there's Jessica. Hey, Jess, how are you? The Cryptid Huntress.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got very few shows that are going to have the pull to bring in new Dogman eyewitnesses week in, week out, if they focus on Dogman, that is. Well, I've noticed a trend for some of them to start making up stories and presenting them as being true. And they make them as frightening as possible. And in the process, you've got people listening to these stories, because that's all they are, stories, taking them to be true stories. And a lot of them that I speak to, the eyewitnesses, they're even more freaked out. They're already having a hard time coming to terms with their encounters or encounter. They listen to this nonsense, think it's true stories, think they are true stories. And then I've got to talk them off the ledge. It just really burns me. I've got no problem whatsoever with creepypasta if you reveal the fact that, okay, this is creepypasta.
Yeah.
These stories are not true. But when you put these stories out there, present them as being true stories when they're not, and they're made to be as frightening as possible, I have a big problem with that.
And and that's the thing. It's hard to tell. I mean, sometimes people are such good storytellers that you want to believe what they're saying. And just like me and Jane, like we said, we don't really have an experience to go off of other than your guys' stories or what we hear on other people's podcasts. So, I mean, there's tricksters out there, like you said, and they're, so it's hard to determine, who actually has really seen something or who really hasn't. Unless they're just way out there and you can just tell right away that they're pegging your bull meter, So I don't know. It's tough.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt about that.
It is.
I mean, I like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I want to hear experiences because, there might be something in this, a little bit of truth out of this wild story they're telling. I don't know. I still like to hear it, but whether I actually believe the whole thing or not, yeah. But, who am I to say he didn't experience that unless I was there, right. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a particular channel that, you can tell that they just put in a couple of keywords and chat, GTP or whatever AI generated story because and doesn't go over proofread it because you can see when they get to these certain points of the, reading and they're ad-libbing kind of changing out things and they'll be reading it as they go and it's just something outrageous and you could tell because this character just stumbles on himself all the time as he's going through it and it's just entertaining to me that he doesn't proofread it still to this day, but whatever. But yeah, it is very hard to tell. It is very hard to tell sometimes, especially when you have so many people that you know and trust or it's something that you've laid your own eyes on and then, you don't want to discredit people because of how outrageous something is, right? I've seen the outrageous, I've experienced the outrageous, but at the same time, you got to be available to answer questions too. Like if people have questions, you have to be there to answer them. And I think that's a big part of it. You know, if people get defensive or don't want to respond to you, there's something wrong with that, I think. And I've said it before too. I think it's great that Vic. It's great that you've been doing live shows, because that was probably the only thing that maybe was missing. But now you're doing live shows with the person and like sitting there for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, and giving people the opportunity to ask them questions about whatever, you know, their experience was. And I think it's great. I really do.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you. It's a mixed bag. No matter what you do when you do this, you're going to have people who are upset with you for making that change. But as you know, it is what it is. I mean, that's all there is to it. It still cracks me up when I get complaints that, Vic, I used to love your show. Your show's not as good as it used to be. Like I'm responsible for this story being more interesting than the other. I mean, people, I just want them to share their experiences as they happened. Don't spice them up. Yeah. Don't lie. Put it out there if it happened. If it didn't happen, don't. So it's not entertainment. People find entertainment from listening to them, but yeah, this is not entertainment. If it's entertainment, then it's story time, but it's not. Right. And the people who complain about that, they lose sight of the fact that, I mean, you're talking about people whose lives have been, I mean, forever altered by these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly.
I can understand that, how there's, you know, how there's maybe the people have favorites because they can relate to them, or because it was so exhilarating, or the guest had so much to say, you know, because of their experience might have been long and drawn out, or whatever the case may be, right? Or that person who might have been on that show might have been better at explaining detail, or right, whatever the case may be, right? But that's what I like out of what you do, is you're more there for the person to heal and get through it, and you're putting it out there for the greater good to, you know, get something from it, hopefully, you know, and whatever it is, it is.
You're right.
I was getting ready to say the same thing Duke just said, that, you know, if you do live interviews with people, then it gives the audience a chance to say, okay, do I believe this guy? You know, what's his emotions? You know, does he seem like he was really scared? Did it really affect his life? You can tell that all in a live interview, how when people start remembering and recounting their story, you can see it in their face, when, you know, when their expressions change. And that's what I like about real interviews.
Yeah, definitely add something to it. Let me ask you this, though. How would you feel if you spoke with someone who's in their 60s, and it's obvious they're very well adjusted, they really have their act together, but when they're talking about their encounter, it's almost like they revert to that little boy, that little girl who they were put to bed by their parents when they were small. And like most little kids do, before they actually planned on trying to fall asleep, they looked over the edge of the bed and underneath and came face to face, nose to nose with the boogeyman. And when this 60-plus-year-old person is talking with you, and at the start of the conversation, everything is normal. But then next thing you know, when they're telling you about their encounter, it's like they're sitting on a paint shaker. You can hear them shake when they're talking and literally fall apart. And I mean, they can't hold it together. Okay, you go from that, and the next thing you know, you have someone contacting you to complain about, well, you know, the shows aren't as good. The shows lately haven't been very good. In other words, very exciting. I mean, how are you going to feel? I mean, you're instantly going to think about these people who you've spoken with like that, who, I mean, they have really been their lives have been turned upside down. And here you have this numbskull over here who's more concerned about how exciting is this encounter that you aired last Friday, or the one before that. It's just horrible.
You know, it makes sense too that that's the case for a lot of scenarios, because the majority of people I talk to, the first thing they say is like, just so you know, I wasn't smoking this or hopped up on drugs or blah blah blah, or I told this to my significant other, or I told this to my family, my mother, my father, whatever, right? So like if it's a child, usually they've gone to their parents and they got shut down, and then they held it for their like entire lives. Or somebody had happened and they go home and they try to talk about it with their spouse, or whatever the case may be, and they get shut down, and then they just shut down, and you know what I mean. And it's like they've been bruised and beaten, mentally and verbally over it, like, or criticized by the people so close to them. Like, what makes them want to come out and put it out to others? So it's like it's almost like a traumatized situation that they've been put in, not only from the experience itself, but from the first people that they told, that they thought that they could tell and get a comforting response from. And I always found that like to be just the hardest part is them opening up because of how badly they were treated like initially, the initial time that they shared.
Yeah, because we don't know how many stories are out there. I keep saying stories. It's not really stories. It should be
Right.
experience, people's experiences that don't come forward because they don't want to be the laughing stock of the neighborhood or the town, or put themselves out there. They just keep their what happened to them to themselves, and maybe once in a while they might tell a family member or a good friend. That's about as far as it goes most times. So, how many experiences or details and stuff are we missing because we don't get everybody to come forward just because of that fact they're afraid of what people will say.
Yep.
You're right. You're right. I mean, it's already a huge reach to expect any of them to come forward and reveal what happened to them because they already are convinced that it's going to be that way. But when they actually get the guts to do it and find out that, yeah, that's how it's going to be. Yeah, I mean, it's devastating for them.
Oh, yeah, it takes alligator skin. I mean, I there's not a day I don't wake up where there's not a comment, like a negative comment there, just waiting for you. At least one, just there, just waiting, and you really have to start to just say like, you got to focus your energy into who and who and what is important, and what energy you should focus on. And there's so many people that are on that other side of the spectrum, that positive end of the spectrum, that I just choose to put my energy into. But I mean, it's if you can't balance that, or you can't shake that off, if you don't know how to do it, it's taxing. It's very taxing.
Right.
It's like putting a target on your back almost. You know what I mean? If you go into these groups sometimes on like Facebook or whatever, I don't really frequent them often, but when I do, it's surprising how many people are in, like, say, a Bigfoot group that don't believe in Bigfoot at all. It's like, what are you even doing there? You're literally just there to throw darts. That's the only reason. Just there to throw darts. And you have to, once you realize that that's what they're there for, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like it didn't matter what you were going to say. They were going to pop your balloon anyway, right? So what's the difference?
Right.
Just forget it.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't understand. Why do you purposely go to somebody else's channel or chat room just to disturb it because you don't believe in Dogman or aliens or whatever the subject happens to be? I mean, just don't tune in. Just don't agree.
Right.
Just keep it to yourself. I mean,
well,
it's that simple. A little common courtesy,
Yeah, there's a way to give feedback in a, like in a positive manner, in a respectful manner, and I don't know. You get my drift. We don't have to go down that lane. You get my drift. So,
I mean, just like Vic was saying, okay, somebody criticized, or whether it was constructive or not, that, okay, your stories aren't as good. Well, not everybody's stories are going to be great and fantastic, or this great action movie, if that's what you're looking for. You know, some people are great storytellers. Other people can barely get online and, you know, just carry on a conversation because they're, you know, scared. First time telling their story, first time being on camera. Maybe that was a traumatic experience for them. So then when they start reliving it and in their head, then they quiet up, and, you know, you can see how it affects them online. And it's horrible if people criticize them for that, because that's something that they're going through. And I'm just happy that they're coming out and sharing it. You know, that's a big step for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it sure is. It really is a shame it has to be that way, that people have such traumatic experiences and have to worry about what the blowback is going to be if they come forward with them. But that's how it is.
That's what sometimes when we have people tell experiences, you know, that, you know, sometimes we have people on like you guys that have podcasts or have been out there for a while, you know how it works and everything, but we'll have first timers on. I always tell them, don't read the chat. Just concentrate on us and have a conversation.
Yeah.
If you can see
I
the
still
chat,
don't read
turn it
chat.
off.
I still don't read it to this day. I still don't do it. To this day, I don't do it because it's not personal. It's just distracting. You know, like it takes, for me, I like to let the host lead the show or whatever interview, whatever the case may be. I like to let them lead and take it wherever it's going to go, or pop up the questions if there are any, and focus on that.
Right.
And yeah, it makes it easier. But I know what you mean, though. I get what you're saying. Yeah. It could be rough.
Actually, though, as a host, there's shows where we've had, people come on and, like Dennis Carroll, for instance, he could sit there and talk for 2 hours and never need you to say a word.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there like, well, where'd those 2 hours go? So you're just sitting there listening. It's like you're just fascinated and getting into whatever he's saying. And pretty soon you realize, oh man, the whole show's over and I didn't even really ask a question.
Yeah. Well, I get, there's certain people like that retain a lot of information and they're able to do that and go. And I'm the same way. When I get around those type of people, I just like to kind of sit back and listen.
Yeah, those are the best guests. The ones that you can wind them up and they can take it from there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every once in a while you think, well, I should ask a question, but then he starts on to the next story or the next aspect of what happened, or, it goes off to a completely different story. And he's like, I didn't even get to ask anything. I feel bad sometimes, but those are the good shows too. They're the ones they're exciting and people just love to hear them talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my kind of party right there.
Yeah, and everyone mentioned Vic's voice. Everyone says, oh, your voice. Well, you do have a voice that would be a perfect grandpa dealing with a 2-year-old with a temper tantrum.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel more and more like a grandpa every day as time goes by. I tell you.
Yeah. Now sit down, son. Now let me tell you about the Dogman before you go to bed.
Yeah, that would work well.
Yeah. Oh,
so would one of you guys like to share an experience maybe that you've had, or maybe a guest on your show, Vic, that stands out that would be a good experience to share?
Well, see, that's the thing. I'm not all that good of a storyteller. Mike is, though, but yeah, I'm not very good at relating stories, but it's paralysis via overanalysis. Well, overexposure. You think about how many eyewitnesses I speak with. Some weeks, it's not uncommon at all for me to have 3-4 brand new encounters come in from Dogman eyewitnesses in one day. Some days, as many as 7 or 8, sometimes 9 come in.
Wow.
And if you think about that times 1 week, times a month, you can only imagine the volume I deal with. And what comes along with that is it's so hard to keep the facts straight between this experience and that experience. It's just really hard. Think about if you had to share specific things about a trip to the grocery store you took maybe a month ago, So yes, kind of the same thing. I can do the best I can. If you do want me to try and share an experience that's been shared with me, I can do that. But yeah, it's not all that easy.
Okay. Well, it's up to you. I just thought maybe there'd be one in your mind that stood out to you that was something beneficial that maybe people in the chat might find interesting. But it's up to you if there's anything there that you'd like to share or not. I mean,
well, I'll tell you what I could do if you'd like. I could share an experience I had about 45 years ago with a huge Sasquatch.
yeah, that's fine.
Well, then again, you wouldn't want to hear about that. So we could talk about whatever you want to.
I'm sure everybody would love to hear about your Sasquatch experience. I know I would.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember exactly how long it's been. It probably is. We are going on close to 45 years now. It was about 45 ago. But yeah, I was deer hunting in the middle of absolute nowhere. And this country was just hills and hollers and I mean, really heavily forested. Well, I went with my neighbor to his farm. He had a farm there in this area, and he told me about the deer hunting there. So we went there, and the plan was we were going to go to his farm the night before opening day of deer season. So we went there, and while we were pulling up to the farmhouse, I looked over and I saw two bays. And I said something about them, and he said, yeah, well, this one right here is closest to us. That's so-and-so, and this one here just past him is Red. He said, so-and-so is fine, but watch out for Red. He'll kill you. So that really sunk in. Don't need to tell me twice. I'm listening. I hear you. I'll remember that. So, yeah, we did whatever and got to the house, unpacked whatever, and settled in. And then before you knew it, the next morning came, morning of opening season. Well, just like we had planned, we woke up well before dawn and had breakfast and some coffee. And then it was time for us to get dressed and head out in our hunting gear. So we headed out past the horses and into the woods. And we walked and we walked. I think we probably walked for like 40 minutes away from the farmhouse. And finally he said, you know what? He said, right here is your spot. This is where you're going to set up. He said, I'll be a few ridges over. And these were huge hills and hollers. So a few ridges over was a pretty good distance. But anyway, he said, you're going to set up here and I'll be back right before dark to get you. And we'll head on into the farmhouse from there. Okay, well, fair enough. Well, I'd never been deer hunting before, so he told me, what to do, told me the ropes and all that. Well, I can't remember how long it was before dawn that we got to my spot, but it was a little while, maybe half an hour or so before dawn. So I'm sitting there, and as the sun came up, I'm looking around, I'm taking in the sights to try and familiarize myself with this area where I was at. And it's just wild looking country. And I mean, old growth. I mean, ridiculous oak trees. And I mean, this is big country. So I'm sitting there and I'm remembering what he's told me about what to do, what not to do. I'm scanning around looking for deer and everything. And nothing was going on. Nothing was moving. There was just nothing going on. Well, I guess I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I was sitting halfway down the slope of this huge holler, and there was all sorts of tree trash. Think about the trash that mature oak trees and walnuts and you name it, sycamores would drop in an area where no one ever cleaned anything up. I mean, this is forest, mature forest. So there's all sorts of tree trash around. No way to move without making noise. So I'm sitting there and I'm scanning the area. Nothing's moving. Nothing's going on. Well, I think it was pretty close to noonish or so when all of a sudden behind this oak tree that I was leaning up against, this big oak tree, all of a sudden I hear this loud whinny. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to analyze, okay, what's going on here? That's obviously a horse. But that doesn't make sense because the slope that I'm on is way too steep for even the craziest horse to even think about going on, number one. And then number two, how could this horse, if it's red, is red coming to get me? If it's a horse, how could that horse have gotten anywhere near me without me hearing it? There's no way. There's not a foot of tree trash. So that just didn't make sense. Well, before I knew it, I heard a horse blow. I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but horses, they can't breathe through their mouths. That's one of the strange physical things about them, their anatomy. They only can breathe through their nostrils. Well, that's why you hear horses so particular about clearing their nostrils. It seems funny if you don't understand the fact that they can only breathe through their nostrils. If you realize that, well, that makes sense why they would do that. Well, if they get one crossways up there or whatever, and they're having a hard time getting it out, that's when they do what's actually called a blow. And instead of, they'll really, I mean, it's a concussive force that you hear. It's hard to describe. You actually have to be around a horse that's doing a full blow to appreciate it. If a horse blows like that and you're close to it and not expecting it, it'll make you jump out of your boots almost. Well, it takes a certain amount of lung volume to do a true horse blow. I mean, you can try to imitate it all you want, but as humans, I'm a big guy. There are very few guys that are as big as I am, but I'm nowhere near big enough to have the lung volume to do to replicate what I heard that day. No way. What I heard do that blow, it had to be north of 1,000 pounds. Its lungs had to be so big, it had to be north of 1,000 pounds.
Wow.
And I can't really tell you for sure how close or how far it was from me. I would say, I can tell you it sounded like it was probably 20 feet or less behind me, but I never did see anything that day. I looked around the tree trunk really slowly, but I looked around the tree trunk one way, didn't see anything. Looked around the tree trunk the other way, didn't see anything. So you explained to me what it was. Couldn't have been a horse. If it was red coming to kill me, coming to murder me, then I would have seen him. I would have seen him, but nothing. Didn't see anything. So you tell me what could have snuck up that close to me that day, that big, that I couldn't find. I couldn't see when I was looking for it.
Wow.
Yeah, that
That's
got my boat
amazing.
running.
Oh,
Wow.
that, like we talked about earlier, maybe they're dimensional. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It had to be something.
Yeah, it did. It did. It makes you, I'll tell you what I've thought about, who knows how many times. As I was sitting leaning up against that tree trunk, and it was a big oak tree that I was leaning up against. I wonder if maybe it was messing with me, reaching around the trunk, seeing how close it could get its hand to me or whatever. I just wonder if it did that or not. Did it come right up to the other side of that big tree trunk and it was actually touching the tree that I was leaning up against that day? I don't know. Yeah, the thought of that gives you the willies.
Wow.
Jane had an experience. It wasn't a Sasquatch. It was a deer out by the apple tree in our backyard. And it did the exact same thing as far as making the nostrils and the blow of it. And you could hear it bounce off the ground. And it was a very deep, guttural sound that came from that deer because it had babies in the area and they're trying to feed.
When it's pitch dark, you don't know anything is out there, and it's just a few feet away, and I'm over there messing with the clothesline, and it's just a few feet over there by the neighbor's apple tree, and that was the first time I heard anything that close. Like, whew, I mean, like, what was that? Went inside, got the flashlight, and came out. Of course, there was Mom and a couple of babies running off, and I went, oh my gosh! When you're not expecting a sound like that, yeah, it's creepy.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
If it was like, I mean, the part about you saying like it was 1,000 pounds or upward, like really puts it into perspective because, and like you said, the tree trash as you described, like you would hear, if we're talking about a male white tail, or even let's even say it's like a giant red, bull elk, like it was something to that effect. Or a moose, like they're gonna make noise as they go through the forest. You're there's no way that they
Right.
can avoid that part of it. You know, there's, it's, I don't know. It's
I know
interesting.
that's the stories you hear all the time is whether, Sasquatch, move through the forest and you don't know they're there. Then other times you hear, people say, well, they hear the banging on the trees or the wood knocks, the brush moving, So, I don't know why sometimes they're so stealthy and other times they want to be known to be out there. Is that a warning or what? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have a lot of misidentifications too when it comes down to the non-visual ones, right? Like we don't know necessarily, unless people are super in tune and and for some reason they're saying like, hey, I was tapped in, I was tuned in, and this occurred. Okay, all right. Like I get that part, but I mean, if it's just something that's unexpected and it happens, like, yeah, why does that one particular Sasquatch like shake the trees or whatever, like and almost like a silverback would like run back and forth and like or bluff
Right.
charge or like tear stuff up and it's yeah. That's why I never put anything in a box. Like I don't ever say like, oh yeah, Sasquatch do this or oh Dogman do this. This is the way they are, and it's like the hell do we know? We don't. We're all in our own little nook and cranny of this huge world, and then if we're talking multiple dimensions too and overlapping and however many there are, like who's to say how many infinite realities there are?
Mm-hmm. Well, what are your thoughts on inner Earth, Vic? Do you think some of them could be coming from a hollow inner Earth, or do you think they're mainly interdimensional?
Well, I don't believe in the idea of there being an inner Earth. I don't buy into that idea at all, but it's not to say that they don't live underground. I mean, there's so many more caves than we are ever going to realize. I mean, the cave system under the United States and elsewhere in the world is so much more extensive than most people are ever going to appreciate. So, yeah, I mean, if they can adapt to a life down there, they've got so many ways to move around and operate unseen. It's not even funny. But as far as there being like a true ecosystem underground, yeah, I definitely don't believe that. Like on King Kong versus Godzilla, yeah, I just don't buy that.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah, because if it is used the natural cave system like you were talking about, and me and James discussed this before too. I mean, whether it's because society is encroaching on area that they've already established and has been there for eons or however long they live. I mean, I don't know how long Sasquatch or Dogman or whoever live. I mean, some people say up to 1,000 years and some people say a couple hundred. How do we know? But if I wanted to avoid civilization, I would be heading towards the caves, and especially one that goes down quite a ways and has multiple tunnels off of one shaft.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
We don't go into
Well,
caves.
even if somebody has, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Go
no,
ahead,
you're
Vic.
fine.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was all done. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. But yeah, like the Mammoth Caves, like I highly doubt we've explored all of those, right? Like,
Right.
and that's the ones we know about, right? And then you have all these places too, like even in Montauk, like the people who own their land, they're not allowed to dig. They're not allowed to go underground because of what they're going to come across, right? Places like Montana, people who landowners in Montana don't own their land. They own their house, and then they, it's like you own it, but you're not allowed to do anything with it. You can't dig, you can't do nothing. Like so, like these are the, and I'm sure there's a lot of other places very similar to it, and you got to wonder why. You know what I mean? And is it because there is things down there that okay, us humans might go dig and then disturb, kick up, maybe a dogman nest or whatever the hell's going on down there that, maybe they only come up once in a while and, bug us here and there. But if we go poking, the beehive, it might, turn uglier, right? And we could even dive deeper into why is a state park or a national park, or why are they what they are? I have those theories too, and even similar to like how the Native Americans were given reservations. I think that there's similar certain preserves and reserves and stuff are not so much left just for animals, but for the other cryptids to roam and do their thing. I don't really consider Sasquatch a cryptid, but I don't. There's a few things I don't consider a cryptid anymore because I put my eyes on it. But they're that's the category they fall in with society.
Right.
Right.
Well, it depends on how you categorize them, because some people say they're dimensional, supernatural, can go in and out of dimensions. Some people say no, Sasquatch or Dogman are just flesh and blood. I mean, it depends on how you feel they are, whether you believe they can go in and out or live in a cave, go to inner earth, get picked up by a UFO and travel with them for a while. There's all those theories out there, but nobody really knows for sure. At least I don't.
Yeah. Well, that's why my biggest thing is to keep going while I can, because I don't, like if I would have stopped at my first experience and never went back in the woods, maybe I would sit on the flesh and blood side because that's all I experienced that day. Maybe there was more to it, but all I saw was a flesh and blood creature. Maybe that's where I would sit. I would sit right there and have no other thoughts about it, right? But then the more and more I went into it, the more and more I've started to find out. But again, can I go and put a blanket statement on it and say that's the way it is across the map? No, that would be ignorant, right?
Right.
So, it's hard to say. But as long as just putting my little drop in the ocean and wherever it goes, it goes.
So how do you guys feel about the experiences that people tell about whether like eye shine, that okay, maybe it's our flashlight that lights their eyes up, or some people say no, it looks like they glow by themselves, like they're emitting the light from their eyes.
Well, some people say that can't be the case because it's totally unprecedented in the animal kingdom. But I'll ask you, besides owls having one ear mounted higher than the other, you name another animal on planet Earth that has that adaptation. No other animal does. Only owls do that. They do that to help them locate where sounds come from on a vertical plane. Of course, if you have a left ear and a right ear, that helps any animal with a left ear and a right ear, which all animals do have a left ear and a right ear. You can locate left to right. But by having one ear located higher on the head than the other, the way owls do, well, that gives them the ability to locate vertically also, to pinpoint where a sound comes from, both left to right and up and down. So that's why they're so effective at, they can hear mice and the underbrush and pinpoint where that sound came from because of that unique adaptation. Well, yeah, they're the only ones, like I said, in the animal kingdom that have that adaptation. So this old comment, this argument that, well, nothing else in the animal kingdom has an adaptation where their eyes can glow, that doesn't hold any water. That's a perfect example why it doesn't hold any water, that example with the owls.
Yeah.
Sure. No. I mean, if I described a bat, if you didn't know what a bat was or what an octopus was, and I described what they do and then what they're capable of, there'd be a handful of people that, or lots of people that would be like, no way. You know what I mean? That's impossible. But because we know what they are and they're put in books and, it's there. It's, it's in our repertoire, so to speak. Right. But, I mean, I've seen eye glow myself. And then, and that one night we were up in the mountains too. I was with Elena and she was somewhere and I didn't know where she was. And I was like, kind of like, where are you? And she was staring at something outside and she's like locked in with it, eyes to eyes. And she's like, look at the eye shine. And I'm like, that's not eye shine. And she's like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm like, no. I'm like, all right, let me I'm like, that's eye glow. we were in the middle of nowhere at this cabin, and there's nothing but farms around for miles, and 19 acres go back to a creek, which is not really a creek, it's a river, but they call it Esopus Creek, but it's like a, anyway, there's nothing that was back there besides, anyway, long story short, there was no light emanating anywhere for it to be eye shine, you know what I mean? So they were like orange glowing, it was eye glow. So it was pretty cool, but yeah, I don't.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I just hear people talk about experiences where they say, it's like they think the eyes were actually emitting the light instead of like a reflection from a flashlight from somebody out there out in the woods, So I didn't know if you guys knew of any experiences or how you felt about it.
I've seen it happen.
Wow.
Yeah. That reflective lens is something amazing in itself. That extra lens that these animals have, like that emits eye shine, and then you have to go into the categories of like deciphering, which animals have which color eye shine, and deer have quite a bit, you know what I mean? But a deer acts a certain way, you know what I mean? And they do have a big range. I've seen them go up and down, and like it looks like something pops up and down, but it's really their neck is outstretched, and they go down to the ground and back up, and I've been, but those are the things you can kind of, if you hang in the pocket long enough, and don't freak out, you can debunk that stuff in the moment. But then there's the stuff that you can't, and like it's not like people say, oh, it's an owl 8 foot up in a tree, and it's like no, like I don't know.
Right. It's the same thing as our 24/7 cameras. And I think you experienced one thing. You messaged Garrel and you said, what is that? What's interacting? And we went, that's just a cobweb. And cobwebs can do weird things to cameras. And so, yeah, we've watched them long enough. You can debunk, like, okay, that's definitely a bug. That's a spider. That's a moth. That's a bat. That thing, I have no idea what that was that went across. I mean, you've seen our cameras. There is things that we don't know. What the heck was that on the camera? And they ask me in chat, and I'm going, I don't know. We have no idea what some of this stuff is that we're seeing on our cameras.
Yep. You just never know what you're going to catch.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know, because some people say, that, we know that in the animal world that a lot of predators have red color to their eyes when the light hits it compared to yellow or green or what a dog or a cat would have or a deer or whatever. And then they
herbivores and carnivores.
Yeah, they take that into the predator or the cryptid world, and they say, well, okay, it had red eye glow, it must be demonic. Or you think there's any kind of demonic stuff going on with Dogman or Sasquatch?
No.
It's possible, but I mean, that's one of those things where we would have to have a lot more proof than we do to jump to any conclusions about that.
Yeah.
Has there been any reports where eye shine's been a different color than red for Sasquatch or Dogman? I mean, I don't know. I've always heard red, most stories that I've heard. So
yeah, for both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, both. Yeah.
Both that they're red, or have you heard of other colors?
Oh, definitely. Dogmen. Oh, they've been amber, they've been red, some actually reported blue, some like a greenish hue, and Sasquatch, it's all the above.
Yeah. Yeah, the Dogmen that I experienced, they had green, I think. I'm pretty sure it was like a greenish, like almost like a teal, Yeah, like an it was more green than aqua, but it was weird, But the way they were moving, I knew you would think they were deer if I didn't just get bum rushed, like I would have thought they were deer. but on the way they were tactically moving, like they were taking turns, like doing this tactical movement, and almost as if like to never take their eyes off of me, you know what I mean? And I'm just huffing and puffing my way down this like strip and trying to get to my vehicle, and you know, deer can't, whatever. I don't want to get into the whole story at this point, but you know, it wasn't no deer, but they had green. I would call it green, I guess.
Well, I know different animals have different colors, you know, depending on what their species are, or what, like we talked about, whether they're a predator or a hunter or carnivore. But it seems like most stories that I've heard about Sasquatch or Dogman's always been red eyes. So I guess I'm missing out on other people's stories because I never knew that they had different color eyes for when you shine a flashlight on them.
Oh yeah, some will change colors as you're looking at them too. I mean, you can see a Dogman or a Sasquatch, and their eyes look red, and then they look this way, and they turn kind of like an ambrish yellow.
Okay, wow. See, I just learned something new. I did not know that.
Yeah, they sure do sometimes.
Well, we're almost at the hour, unless Jane has something else, or you guys have something else.
I was reading what Duke wrote. Yeah, you can pull up Duke's comment about performing an exorcism on a Bigfoot.
Okay. Irritate them. Try and do an exorcist on a Bigfoot.
Oh, I can imagine.
Eyes to the left with great haste.
I was going to say this would probably be a good point to end the show. We've been going about an hour and a half, unless Jane has another question she would like to ask you guys, or you guys have a final comment or anything.
There was one question earlier. What about seeing female dogman, you know, dog women? Why, you know, is there, are they hiding more and the males are out and about? But why is it that you don't hear about a whole lot of the female in these beings, I guess I should call them?
That's a good question. Yeah, they are seen, but definitely not nearly as often as the male ones.
Right.
So I can't answer that for you. Some have 2 teats, others have 6, 8 teats. So there's no rhyme nor reason to how many they're going to have. But yeah, I mean, you don't see them as often.
What about baby dogmen, puppies?
They're seen too. Not all that often, but they are seen.
Okay.
Well, I guess they would be protecting their family and keeping the female and the children off somewhere safe. And, you know, usually just like in the human race, the mother usually takes care of the children and takes after them, while the men or the male figure goes out and hunts and provides food or makes sure the area is safe for them. Mm-hmm. I'm just guessing that, I'm assuming that would make sense.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they fall back when humans come into an area. I'm pretty sure they fall back. And the males stick around. You know, they kind of take the young to safety, whatever the case may be. And then with Sasquatch, I think it's more cultural. Like it's more of a cultural thing. Like it's on a deeper. It's on a more deeper level, like a family type thing, like cultural, like they. I don't, you know, it's a deep rooted answer, I guess, but.
Right.
Yes. Well, than that, I think I haven't seen any other questions. I've been trying to keep an eye on chat over here.
Yes, I guess we'll just go ahead and end it here. And thank you guys for coming. And if nobody out there in chat has ever seen Vic's show or his podcast or Mike and his 5 or 6 lives a day, make sure you check out their channels. So if you guys would like to tell everybody how they can get a hold of you or where they can find you, go ahead and do that. And
that's what I was going to ask, because Vic does have what, 3 channels or more?
4.
You have 4 channels. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's depressing, but it's a lot of work. But why doesn't Mike go
It is.
first?
No, I'm on Island Bigfoot. I'm on YouTube or Facebook too, I guess. I don't know. If you guys need to reach me for any reason, Long Island Bigfoot at Gmail. It's all very synchronized. But that's pretty much it. Yeah. I haven't been doing a lot of lives lately, but there hasn't seemed to be much of a need for or an interest in the boots on the ground stuff lately. So I kind of slowed my roll and been just doing personal stuff. But I still try to put out as much as I can when I'm doing my experiences. I try to bring people along and at least make some sort of a video. And I've been making them a lot shorter lately. Let's put it that way. So.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about Mike. Instead of just putting the cake out there, he shows you how that cake is made. He made a great example of that on a show that we did recently. And yeah, I mean, he shows how that cake is made. He goes out there and shows you what he puts into all the work that he puts into researching these guys with Dogmen and Sasquatch. And yeah, I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This guy doesn't get nearly as much credit as he deserves, definitely.
Well, thank you.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Vic, you want to tell everybody the name of your shows and what platforms you're on then?
Well, the show I'm best known for is Dogman Encounters Radio, and it's available on any of the podcast apps out there, however you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you do a search for Dogman Encounters Radio or just Dogman Encounters even, it'll pop up. It's also available on YouTube, and also I've got 2 Sasquatch podcasts. I've got one called Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio that's been around since 2015. And like Dogman Encounters, I air weekly episodes, new episodes weekly for it. And then I've got a newer Bigfoot podcast. It's about 1.5 years old now, called My Bigfoot Sighting. That is available on every podcast app out there, whatever your favorite podcast app is. You can find it by going and typing in My Bigfoot Sighting. That's also available on YouTube. And then I've got a newer show called My Paranormal Experience that basically is based around just people coming on and in a first-hand manner sharing their paranormal experiences, ghost encounters, strange cryptid encounters, alien abductions, anything that doesn't involve a Sasquatch or a Dogman. That's basically what we cover on that show.
Wow.
Nice. And then you have a website too, obviously, I think, right? I think that's what I shared in the description.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, all 4 shows have their own websites. Dogman Encounters can be found by going to dogmanencounters.com. Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio, if you go to bigfooteyewitness.com, you can find the website for that show. If you're looking for My Bigfoot Sighting, please go to mybigfootsighting.com. And then My Paranormal Experience, if you go to myparaex.com, myparaex.com.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you for coming. I've enjoyed this show and I've learned some new stuff tonight even.
Thanks for
That's
having
No, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. Thank you guys for all you do. Keep up the good work, and thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
you too, Mike.
Yeah, we enjoy your lives and your trails, and even when you're just sitting in the car going somewhere talking to us. We like those too.
I enjoy that. Yeah, just hanging out with you in the car.
Yeah, that's my give back time. Yeah.
Yeah. And Vic, it was a pleasure having you on. It's the first time we've had you, and we've really enjoyed it. And I agree. I love your voice, and I think it's an awesome voice to tell these experiences. And I think that's why everybody just loves going to your channel and listening.
Yeah, and thank you for helping people with, their fear and their stories and, calming them down and helping them with their experiences. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I just feel lucky to be in a position to do it. So
I'm
wouldn't-
in that boat. I'm in that boat. You know, like I was still floundering with my Dogman experiences, and you know, he shed a whole new light on it, and like the way. Well, we discussed it, and you know, I had a lot of fear in me too, like still for many years before, you know, we finally sat down, Vic. So I'm one of those first-hand people that you helped, so I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, just glad to help. Glad to be there.
All right. Well, everybody in chat, we're going to say goodbye to you. And, you know, everybody's obviously in chat has enjoyed the show and the guests and their comments and everything they've told us. And please go over to Long Island Bigfoot and Dogman Encounters and Vic's other channels and check out their content. It's awesome. I mean, we go over there all the time and watch and listen to their shows, and we see them pop up on other people's podcasts, whether it's Jessica the Cryptid Huntress, or they were just on Heidi Pop's channel, a good friend of ours, and they're getting out there. So make sure you go over there and like, share, and subscribe just like you do for our channel. And we'll see you guys all next time.
And
So
keep your
looking up,
vibrations
everybody.
high. And keep your vibrations high. And I'm not
All
doing
right.
a heart tonight.
Good night, everyone.
It's been a fun time. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.